Clarification, Mr. Langreck and Ms. Dole, was this posted downstairs in the courtroom? I'm sorry, the hallway of the courthouse, not in the courtroom. That'd be a weird place to put it. Okay, great. Agenda item number 3, agenda approval. We've got a 14-point agenda, so I'm looking for a motion to approve. Motion by Brewer, second by Cooey. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. So the agenda is approved. Agenda item number 4, previous meeting minutes. So I'm going to hold off until I got a little background. Okay. Previous meeting minutes. So I'm looking for a motion to approve those minutes. Motion by Cooey. For a second. Okay.
Second.
We got a second by Gentis. Any discussion on those minutes? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. So we have approved minutes. Agenda item number 9 under finance, transfer from Fund 92 to Highway. Mr. Langreich.
Mr. Chair, looking today for motion to transfer $650,000 from Fund 92 to Fund 71 County Highway Fund to supplement highway funds for 2021 county trunk repairs and maintenance intended for the short-term borrowing. Background on this item: 2021 major county trunk maintenance work executed with intentions of these borrowed funds included County Trunk U from the county line to County Trunk E near the Elk Creek branch, and County Trunk U intersection with County Trunk in Richwood Township intersection road. Again, this came from our short-term borrowing for 2021, looking to transfer those funds again from Fund 92 to Fund 71. Mr. Chair.
Okay, so looking for a motion to make that transfer. Motion by Cooey, second by Turk. Does anyone have any questions about this? I just have 2 questions, and if they can't be answered today, that's fine. But maybe, I think, Mr. Cooey, are you on the Highway Committee? Were there any other projects that were funded with that 650 grand, or was it just these 2 projects? Okay, and then under point number 2, County Trunk U, it's the intersection of County Trunk U with another intersection in Richwood Township. Do we know what intersection?
Oh, I'm sorry. It should have been, I believe, down to intersection with.
It was U and F.
Yes. Yep.
Oh, right. That's your district. Okay.
Got everyone dander up out here.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so U and F, that intersection. Okay. All right, any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. All right, that motion carries. These funds can be transferred. Agenda item number 6, contracts. This means contract for linen services for Pine Valley. So, Mr. Alexander, you want to come up to the mic there, and I think you just have to pull that button on the top towards you, and then
it's actually a push button.
Oh, never mind. And then just come up kind of close to it, almost kiss the microphone so that folks online can hear you. Okay, is that good?
A little closer, please.
You gotta come closer. All right.
You can move it closer to you.
So about 2 months ago, I started looking into contracting out our laundry linen service. Staffing has been, like most people, really, really tough. We're not really getting any applicants anymore. I have one person that's retiring next week and probably 1 or 2 that are right on the edge of retirement. We're actually going to be removing 2 positions, full-time laundry positions. The rest of the staff will stay on in housekeeping. it turned out to be some actually money savings by contracting out. But we really did it because of the staffing. That was just kind of icing afterwards, but. So I guess if anybody has any questions.
Okay, so we're looking today for a motion. This is to present a resolution to the county board for approval to enter into a 3-year agreement with Aramark.
Yeah.
How you say that?
Yeah.
To provide linen laundering services for Pine Valley.
Correct.
And the reason this is coming to finance is because of Rule 14E, which requires contracts of more than 50 grand a year to if they're less than 50 grand, Pine Valley Board of Trustees can approve them, but if they're more, they have to go to the county board.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
we debated this issue or thought a lot about it at the Pine Valley trustee meeting. And we actually will save money in the long run. So we think that this is something that we should do.
Was that a motion?
I'll make that a motion.
Okay, motion by Brewer,
I'll second that with a little comment.
second by Gentis, and go ahead.
I used Airmark for years when I ran all the elder hostels and everything, and they were absolutely perfect. No problem.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. Thanks for coming down to the courthouse.
Yep, thank
Mr.
you.
Alexander and Mr. Rislow. Okay, agenda item number 7 under personnel, added vacation in recognition of experience, Pine Valley employee, Mr. Langright.
Mr. Chair, looking today for a motion to grant 1 additional week of vacation time to the Pine Valley Administrator's current vacation accrued balance and to grant a 4-week vacation accrual rate, 12-year tenure level, to the Pine Valley Administrator upon the 2022 anniversary date, continuing at that same 4 weeks level until reaching 23 years of employment with Richland County. Background on this item: Administrator Tom Rislow was hired by Pine Valley Care Facility Administrator on March 3rd, 2018. Administrator Rislow assumed the position with the benefits package that included vacation accrual as defined by the employee handbook at that time. At that time, first accrual for new employees was 1 week after 1 year of employment, 2 weeks after 2 years, 3 weeks after 6 years, etc. Tom currently accrues vacation at a 2-week accrual rate. I am requesting an exception to the handbook under reasoning of the excessive amount of direct experience that Administrator Rislow entered into Richland County employment. Tom began his first assignment as a nursing home administrator in June of 1983 and is continuously employed in nursing facility administration assignments for a running total of 38.5 years. For these inordinate circumstances, I'm requesting Tom be granted 1 week of additional vacation to his current balance and granted 4 weeks accrual at his next anniversary date, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion on the effect of what Mr. Langright read off here.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Brewer, second by Turk. Discussion on this? Can you just pull that mic closer so that, yep. Did you all hear that question online?
No,
So my question is, do we look at our administrators, are they salaried or are they hourly position?
Our handbook requires that department heads are salaried with the exception of maintenance supervisor Randy Nelson, I believe, is in an hourly capacity.
Just because most of the time in a salaried position, a lot of that stuff's negotiated when they're hired. You know, we went through negotiations with, so me personally, I don't have a problem with this. You know, I can support this. I just, in some cases, you wish it would have been taken care of from the beginning. That's all.
Absolutely.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. Agenda item number 8, amendments to employee handbook, highway and HHS.
Mr. Chair, looking today for a motion to affirm all changes to the Richland County Highway Addendum HHS addendum to the handbook and to accept formatting changes to the Richland County Highway and HHS addendum. The attached drafts of the Richland County Highway and HHS addendum are composed with efforts capturing the transition from a county clerk administration to the present administrator structure. There are also several small formatting changes included. Administration would like to have finance and personnel affirm the content changes, accepting formatting changes. These include changes worked through the Administrator Transition Committee. The assistant to the administrator will be walking the committee through the changes and formatting revisions as requested, or can entertain questions. And I would defer to Assistant Cheryl Dull for questions.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion here to affirm these changes.
Make motion.
Motion by Cooey,
Second.
second by Luck. Any discussion on these?
They're pretty much what we discussed at the last meeting, right? I read it.
Yes, the intentions, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cheryl, are a lot of the switches are to administrator from county clerk, from finance and personnel, potentially from supervisory committees. If there are any other specific changes that need to be directly identified, Cheryl?
And these, they're not, it just takes a while to get through all the handbooks with all the changes. It's basically following the rest of them. I believe this may pretty much get us caught up, except for, I mean, as far as employee handbooks.
Just by looking at it, it looks like most of it's just taking whoever was the governing body out and putting you in place is what it looks like to me.
And actually, since you asked that question, it reminds me, how are we getting these out to employees? These updated handbooks?
After we pass them by resolution with the county board, then we follow up through correspondence down through the department head and then chain of command notifying that the documents have been updated. Assistant Dell puts them then on the employee portal out on the main website, so it's accessible then to all employees through HTML. Cheryl requests MIS, and MIS then on our behalf puts it on the portal.
Okay, so anyone who has access to the portal through their work here at Richland County can see it that way. But also a notice goes out to department heads, and it's up to those department heads on how they want to disseminate
Yes.
the updates.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, I think Mr. Cooey. Okay, Mr. Seat, go ahead.
yes, you can count me present. I finally got signed in.
Great. Glad you're here.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Cooey.
So the only thing that and we've talked about this in the past, is when you change handbooks and you require people to go look for a handbook, sometimes that doesn't happen. And I would much appreciate it to be posted, the changes in places, you know what I mean, in whatever department it is. That to me seems to be the best way to show that you're not trying to hide something with your changes in your handbook. It's very much an open door. Everybody gets the opportunity to see everything. So that's what I would request, I guess, is if we're going to make changes to anything, that we have bulletin boards in the main area of the offices or the courthouse and HHS and Pine Valley and Highway Department, whatever. And it's just easier to put something up there and say, this is what happened. And then people don't feel like they're being stuff done behind their back.
So once we send it to the department heads, I don't know what happens. My preference would be to send it to every individual employee in that department that has an email, but I don't think that is all the department heads' preference. Some department heads are okay with that and some are not.
MIS is not okay with that because every time you send an email, it has to be archived. If you are sending that email to the 300 email addresses we have, you're sending that with that attachment to be archived to the end of time. Think about the space that we're doing. That's not okay.
Yeah, I don't think an email is okay either. I think it should be posted. You want this stuff out in front of everybody. It should become a common practice that whenever we change anything, okay, this gets disseminated to this, and this, and it's posted and it's done. That way you're open, you present that you're open with everything you're doing. That's why
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Mr. Brewer.
but if are you gonna post the entire handbook or the addendum to the handbook? I mean, we're talking,
I would say the changes, Marty, anytime that you go through and you change.
but here we're just changing a word or a reference, so it's gonna be all the way through.
Understood.
So you have to, I think, maybe
Then
hit
you
a
may
happy
have to
medium.
post the whole-
Pardon?
Then you may have to post it all, but I
Well,
think if you want to be open and honest, okay, so you're trying to retain employees and everything else, right?
right,
We want to be open with what we're doing, and if worst thing you can do is have employees get a feeling that you're doing stuff behind their back. So then, and this isn't at all, you know what I mean, but they're not gonna understand why the handbook's changing. And like we do, I mean, we understand perfectly, but not everybody's gonna understand. So that would be I realize it takes time, it takes effort, all the above. At the end of the day, they make it.
Could I offer as a potential then for like a future agenda item, we can talk about language to include in policy on how we're doing notifications for a future agenda item?
Yeah, I can see there'd be several ways to crack the nut, you know, about how to notify. And we might not be able to figure it out as a group, but I'm sure our administrative team could work with our department heads to come up with a solution that accomplishes the goal of notifying folks. So, okay, so any more discussion on this one? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
I,
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. Agenda item number 9, amendments to FMLA policy.
Mr. Chair, looking today for a motion to affirm all changes to the Richland County FMLA policy and to accept the formatting changes to the Richland County FMLA policy. The attached draft of the Richland County FMLA policy is composed with efforts of capturing again the transition from the clerk to the administrator structure with more defined law. The current changes have been reviewed and approved by County Corp Counsel. There are also several formatting changes included. Administration would like finance and personnel to affirm the content changes and accept formatting changes. Assistant to the administrator will be walking the committee through the changes as necessary or entertaining questions. Mr. Chair.
Okay, let's get a motion and a second on the floor here. This is to affirm all changes to the Richland County FMLA policy. A motion by Turk,
a second.
second by Brewer. So any questions or comments on this?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I thought I heard the administrator say that he would walk us through the changes. Is that correct?
If we'd like, would you like him to walk us through the changes, Mr. Seat?
How long an ordeal is this?
What do you want to say, Mr. Langer? How many minutes would it be to give a summary?
There's a lot of underline here, so it really comes down to what you'd like to hear, but we can certainly accommodate, not a problem.
I mean, I read through it earlier and it all looked very professional and made a lot of sense to me. I didn't read it in great detail, but I looked at the changes and I could tell that it seemed like you wrote this because you used to do this for your job down in Greene County. So I felt very.
Well, thank you for the praise, but most of the heavy lifting Cheryl did.
Oh, all right. You get the compliment that it looks great to me. So.
That's fine.
Okay, anyone else? Great. All those in favor of the motion to approve these, please say aye.
I,
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. Agenda item number 10, discussion and possible action on vacation policy and weather closure as requested in the December 17th Finance and Personnel meeting.
Mr. Chair, motion today pending on discussion. Background on this item is per future item request. The committee is asked to discuss and take possible action amending or giving guidance regarding vacation policy and weather closure. Handbook language can be found below in the same agenda summary item cover you'll see an excerpt that shows our language that we have in there for vacation. Then below that, you will see then an excerpt that kind of talks on the weather conditions. I will kind of turn it back to yourself, Mr. Chair, to guide discussion and guidance that you'd like to see from us.
Okay, so for me, it was helpful to see the request from Mr. Rislow, because it kind of got my mind back into our current policy. And I was thinking about this on the way here today. I wonder if any of the other committee members today have ideas for how to specifically change it, or if not generally, how would you change our existing vacation policy? I think the general consensus seems to be that we should be increasing it, but I think the question is how. What thoughts? Yeah, Mr. Turk.
Generally, based on, I manage, so we hire, in our company, we accrue paid time off, and you start accruing from day one.
Yeah.
And you have it able to use once you've accrued enough to take some, and that is an advantage when hiring people, is being able to give that time off. We made the change a couple years ago to give a week after 6 months, but even that is not really an aggressive approach.
Can I speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
I agree
President
with Mr. Turk. I think that we should start from the first month of a day and a half for every month worked, and then at the end of the year, you would have more than, you'd have your 2 weeks. I think everyone would rather have that. That change.
So if I see, I'm trying to think back. Yeah,
Chair.
my path. Oh yeah, go ahead.
While those ideas are greatly beneficial to employees, we have to be mindful of the workload we create. I remember when we had the discussions about the modifications we did, we did discuss a PTO kind of model, but that was not convenient with our current HR system. It would have required a humongous amount of manual calculation and implementation to make it happen. Mr. Langrick, if you have any additional feedback.
Yes, before we were to make any definite decision on it, we're certainly going to want to see what the vision in is, and if our AS400, our payroll system, can accommodate doing the calculations for it. At the same time, too, it's understanding that we're doing different calculations and you have exceptions to rules, then that kind of adds a manual entry each time. There's kind of two parts to it that we're talking about then, as we're talking about switching to a PTO system versus a traditional vacation and sick time type of a element of it. Then the other part of it is the amount receiving. I would agree that for an organization that is recruiting with a lot of our position descriptions looking for more than entry level type of employees, for folks with multiple years or even mid-career, later career employees, that having the assumption that we're going to recruit somebody at a 1 week after 6 months is, you have to find a special person that's willing to do that. So I think that's appropriate. For other accrual rates, though, too, if we're going to give more time off, I think that's great and appropriate, but it has to be, and I implore you that you understand with it, is that it's going to end up being a reduction in service for folks that are kind of more 40-hour-a-week folks, and for operations that are 24/7, there could be more overtime involved and other ways of trying to then make up and cover those days potentially, which again isn't a bad thing. It's just something at the front end we have to understand financial impacts and potential reduction in service impacts.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think that you almost have to come up with like a formula if it accrues from day one. I'm assuming like decimal points per hour.
That's how it works with our company. And I'm not advocating that the county go to that at this time, because again, our payroll system doesn't support that. So someday it would be good to see us make that move, but at this point, perhaps we should consider a more aggressive plan based on our current parameters.
I mean, I don't know how the plan works, but if you, I don't, there maybe doesn't have to be a day and a half a month, but it's very simple in some ways to do the monthly, you know,
Or sick time accruals in
yeah.
monthly type of increments, and if it's versus having an every pay period, a point amount, it's a, it's an accrual on an anniversary in a month, that's something we can explore as well. Switching to a PTO versus a sick and vacation time, I am a fan of, because then that helps. The discussion doesn't then go down the line of validating if that was an appropriate use of sick time. More so the conversation goes more towards, did the employee give appropriate amount of notice? Or if it was emergency, you know, what's their frequency on how often they're giving short notice for being gone, becomes more of a conversation.
I have another question, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know we have their anniversary date, but, and I don't know how hard this is, and our year end is sort of in June rather than January, but it seems to me that we ought to have, no matter when they're hired, then as of June 1 or January 1, that we start all the vacation time instead of anniversary dates. I think it's too hard to keep track of that.
So
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Seat, and Mr. Cooey.
well, if Mr. Cooey asked for recognition, I would defer to him going first.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Cooey.
Well, along what Linda's saying, so I've lived in both worlds, and that January is nice. I mean, really nice, to where everybody starts over in January. Now that first year, you kind of get, you got to get everything true or whatever. So people might have vacation, but it is really nice, so that as far as, okay, everybody gets their vacation in January or June, whatever you choose, and then you just go from there. The thing that you got to remember is of course, everybody's getting their vacation, and people think they haven't accrued their time yet. You know what I mean? So if they had a October hire date, you know what I mean? They were 10 months. They get their vacation 10 months sooner than they would have got. But the first year is
You do like a proration on the first year.
exact.
Yep.
But to me, I mean, as far as operating, it's real easy then, because then everybody's done at this time, everybody starts at this time. So the only other thing I would say is, if we're concerned about that first 6 months, maybe we just add in 2 personal days or something just to get to that 6 months. You know, even accruing, I know what the accruing thing, I've done that, I've been in that too, but like I said, we're not set up to handle that right now. So if we wanted to do something quicker, you know, if we gave 2 or 3 days right out of the gate, basically from the day they were hired, to get them to that 6 months so they got that time. And then, of course, I'm all for the use it for whatever it is. Don't classify it as sick time. Don't classify it as vacation. You know what I mean? Just throw it in and say, this is your time. Use it the way you need to. That's
Okay,
all I got.
thank you. Mr. Seat, and then Supervisor
Yeah.
Law.
From what I gather here, is that we're trying to create a plan to solve a problem. And I haven't heard a clear statement of the problem, but my understanding is that the present vacation plan is insufficient in terms of our ability to retain, to recruit and retain employees. If that is the problem, and if we're trying to plan a solution to that problem, perhaps it might be helpful for our administrator to propose a plan that would solve the problem. Now, it doesn't sound like a plan is proposed today, and it sounds like we're digging around trying to figure out how to create a plan. I wonder if we should depend on our administrator to bring us a proposed plan that he thinks will solve the problem. Period.
So, Mr. Seep, I think what we're doing today is taking the temperature of the Finance and Personnel Committee to see what our opinions are. And then I'm sure, like a lot of things we do, the committee doesn't come up with a plan. Of course, the administrator works with his team to come up with a plan, bring it back to
Yes.
us so that we can approve it. So I'm assuming this will be a two-step process. So I think what you're saying would fit in really well with how we typically do things. Is that right, Mr. Langrick? Is that how you would see this?
Yes, certainly trying to get a flavor or a temperature, like you said, on where you see policy changes should be, which direction we should be looking at. So
Oh,
that's,
okay, thank you. Supervisor Luck?
This is
I
Stacy
was just-
Kleiss. May I ask a question?
Oh, I think so, but just let me check. I thought I heard Supervisor Luck. Did you want to speak or was?
I did.
Okay, yeah, go ahead and then I'll come to you, Ms. Kleist.
I mean, I think all of these ideas are good and we should obviously pursue this. My only comment would be on Mr. Cooey's, where I worked at the UW, our vacation time all ended on the same. So, we got new vacation. It was actually July 1st because they're off. But the problem you have is that everyone's also ends at the same time. And if people haven't used it, then you have this mad rush of a bunch of employees wanting to use their vacation time. And in this case, it would be in December, which is already a challenging month to have employees. So that's just something I just wanted to comment on and keep in mind.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Kleist, you can go ahead.
Hi. This discussion about the PTO and whether that's one of the things that's a problem for retaining and attracting employees. Do we know that that is a key factor? And if so, how do we know that? Because what I hear from people in interviews and in just general discussion, I never hear vacation or PTO. I hear health insurance and the concern over the amount of the deductibles, particularly, and also the fact that the county's not in the state plan, and comparisons with like the employer, the city of Richland Center, which I think stayed with the state plan and doesn't have as high of a deductible. I have heard from a number of people from the private sector now who they do comparisons when they interview with the county, and our benefits aren't as good as the private sector, which is different than what it was 10, 15 years ago. So that's what I hear as a number one issue. And I'm just wondering if there's a way that we can gauge why we have lost people and why we have not been able to attract as many applicants.
Okay, yeah, thanks for letting us know what you're hearing from applicants. We can't discuss the issue of health insurance today because that's not on our agenda. But I don't know if, I think Ms. Kleist's question is, do we know exactly how the vacation PTO time issue is hurting our recruitment efforts? I'm assuming it's mostly anecdotal. We haven't done any questionnaires formally. Is that probably right?
I think you'd have to survey kind of in reverse. It would be hard to know who's not applying for our jobs to reach out to them. For folks that are applying out to their jobs, you'd be able to understand. In broad strokes, yes, the health insurance is certainly something that is only going to continue to climb. Obviously, as we know, with pandemics and impacts on the healthcare system and our own internal struggles to try to recruit and retain healthcare workers, it's no secret that we're going to have continued increases in our health insurance costs, and folks that are reliant on our programs and seeking services, it's going to be impacts on those folks as well. So there's it's certainly part of the equation in having a compensation package that retains and recruits.
Okay, so staying on the issue of vacation policy, PTO, I'm wondering if we can kind of split this out into maybe a couple topics like Mr. Langreck, I think, was trying to do with us. So is anyone opposed to the idea of committee members here opposed to the idea of combining vacation and sick time into PTO? Does anyone have reservations about that? Mr. Turk?
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, hold on. We'll ask him to repeat that. His mic just wasn't working.
No. There it is. Okay, sorry. As a concept, I think it's great, but implementation would be my concern with the limitations of our payroll system and the creation of a large manual work burden that needs to be done to manage that kind of thing. But the concept to me is, as a person who works with that as a manager, my employees start accruing from day one, and we don't have to worry about anniversary dates because it just accrues on an ongoing basis.
Well, I'm actually talking about, we'll get to that one.
Paid time off.
This idea of combining vacation and sick time into PTO. So no longer having sick time in one bucket and vacation time in another.
Yeah, like I say, as a concept,
Okay,
but the implementation would be my concern.
got it. Even with that one
Yes.
as well. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I know if you have that system, inevitably you will run into the situation where, gee, I didn't know I was gonna get sick, so I used all my time to take that trip out to whatever. And so what do you do for those people then?
Yes, with having access to paid time off, it becomes the employees have more leverage on what they're using it for. It's not, some of it is not reserved for sick type of purposes. So if we don't have effective management of that, and oh my goodness, this type of a thing happened and now I don't have the sick that I need, not being able to look into the future on what the situations are, but potentially if they've been here over a year, they still have access to FMLA where their position is protected. Depending on the impact of the position, there is language that allows for employees to donate sick types of time. There are other types of elements, but it does put more onus on employees, on managers as well, on making sure that employees are keeping rainy day types of scenarios in place. To caveat on Dave's comments on the AS400 system, and if our system can handle that, the other part of it too is having went through the experience at Clark County of transitioning over to a PTO system, they actually put in place almost like sunsetting your current benefits, because you can't just wipe the slate clean and your 5 weeks are gone and you're starting over at a day one accrual rate. There has to be almost like mechanisms in place to track what you had and what you're moving forward, or if you're allowing folks to continue with a vacation type of a scheme and you're just sunsetting it. New employees that are coming through the door now are on a PTO system and other people have the chances to switch out to them. It's a multi-year kind of endeavor to take on something like that.
There are two comments from Tammy in the Clinton's office. Also, I had a question, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, just a second here. Let's read these. I think I don't want to. Sometimes the discussions where we don't have motions are they can be a little hard because I just want to make sure that we give direction to staff about what the committee thinks about things. So I'm just wondering if we can just handle this one issue right here and make sure we know where everyone's at on the committee on that particular issue, and then move on to the next one so we give them clear direction. Because
really the scope of what what parameters would you like us to take a look at so we know how to build options to bring back, is kind of, rather than making any type of decision on whether or not we're doing this or we're not, is really what would you like considered and brought to the table?
Okay, so I'll go ahead and make a motion that we direct staff to look into the issue of combining vacation and sick and other paid time off banks into one large bank to look into the issue and come back with options.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep, Mr. C.
I like your motion. I would like information coming back from staff and as well as how this relates to administration of the option and any administrative burden. You made reference to the accounting system a couple of times and what its limitations are. So as well as additional manual labor, I would like to see in the options a reference to the administrative burden.
Point of order, we don't have a second yet.
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion by myself and a second by Seep. And I'm going to try to restate what I said because I felt like I was wandering a little bit. It's a motion to look into the issue of combining vacation, sick, and other paid time off banks into one large category and come back with options for how to carry that out.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Mr. Turk.
I would fully support that motion, but I'm not sure that addresses the original concern that we talked about last meeting to bring here.
What was that?
Of how our current vacation schedule doesn't appeal to new hires, so to speak. And
Yes.
addressing that ability to get them some paid time off sooner, potentially.
I agree. Yeah, I think we need to make several motions
Yep.
here.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to bite pieces off so we can,
Okay.
give them some direction. So any more discussion on that from committee members, the PTO combining vacation, sick, and I think the reason I'm saying other things is because I see Ms. Hendrickson said PTO time generally encompasses funeral leave as well. So that's why that's why I said it that way in the motion. Ms. Scott, was your comment related to this topic we have a motion on?
You can wait.
Okay. All right. So let's, all those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, so that motion carries. Mr. Turk, do you want to take a shot at that next one?
I would make a motion that we direct the administrator and the team to come back with a recommendation for increasing access to paid time off for newly hired employees, those in the first couple years of that vacation schedule that we have here. Give us some options for that.
Okay, we've got a motion by Turk.
I'll second.
Second. We got a second by, we'll do Luck this time. Any discussion on this one?
Direct the administrator and his team to come back with some recommendations for increasing access to paid time off for newly hired employees in the first couple years of their employment.
Okay, any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. Now I think, yeah, and the way you worded your motion, Mr. Turk, I think that would potentially include the accrual rates. So perhaps we don't need to make a motion about accrual. I think you got at that pretty well. I'm wondering about, when I was reading it, I thought, I know we have a lot of turnover. I seem to remember those employees they're here like 2 to 4 years, something like that. And I was kind of wondering, looking at this, do we need to be ramping up our vacation to encourage people to stay for those people, that aren't new hires? The distance between when you get 2 weeks after 2 years, and then you've got to wait 4 years to get another week.
Can I say, I
Yeah.
thought your first motion encompassed that we were thinking of changing the whole structure of vacation time.
Yeah, but that might not increase the accrual rate, depending on years of service, accrual rates change typically in that atmosphere as years of service, so you may still stay at a day, and I'm just picking a day and a half for the first 3 years, and then you go to 2 days or 3 days or whatever month. I would agree, getting to 3-4 weeks quicker. That fifth week, it gets, that's even getting to that a little quicker. 23 years is a long time to get to that fifth week. My experience by 17, we're at 5 weeks, I think is what we are as a plant. So that's getting to them weeks of service quicker. Days off quicker would be better.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and I'll make it formal. I'll make a motion to accelerate the amount of vacation time, realizing that this could turn into something else potentially. It could turn into PTO time. Accelerate it for mid and long-term employees.
Again, motion for us to
look
come
into,
forward with some recommendations.
Thank you. That's what I need to look into options and come forward with recommendations regarding those mid and long-term employees for accelerating that vacation time. So that's my motion. Is there a second for that motion? A second by Cooey. Any discussion on that motion?
Well, I have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Brewer.
Would Milliman and Robertson be of use here? I mean, certainly they must poll and get this information among counties, don't they?
We can look out to pull through either Carlson, Detman, or Steve.
Carlson Detlin, I'm sorry, I was
Okay.
living in the past here, yeah.
And I think recently we participated in a few surveys for them with the idea that they were going to be putting together some different surveys.
Well, they know
that-
what other counties do.
Yeah, we can always,
Counties Association.
yes, checking around to see what our neighbors are geographically who we're competing with, or our comparables by size and organizational structure is also sources that we can reach out to. Put it in relationship.
Okay, any further discussion on that motion?
Discussion.
Oh, Mr.
Mr.
Seat.
Chairman, I'm not sure whether this question relates to this motion or not. In the definition of paid time off, is that inclusive of paid holidays?
That's it. Yeah, you're on the motion we already passed. So let's see if there's any further discussion on this motion. And this motion is related to the acceleration of vacation
Yes,
time.
I understand. I didn't think my question was relevant to this, but I would like
We'll
that
come
question.
back. We'll come back to it. Okay, so I'm not hearing any more discussion. So all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. So I think, Mr. Seep, I think that is a good question as far as that, and that was the first motion, I believe, that was made. And yes, Ms. Hendrickson did not write that in the chat box, but I would assume that holidays might have some, Mr. Langer?
A couple different facets to holidays, as holidays impact all of our departments differently. Our 24/7s recognize holidays different, either by having to work at it 9+2 or all these different mechanisms. Traditionally, I would see that for the general employee, holidays would still be a day designated as off because we'd have office closure. But like our floating holidays that we currently kind of implement would probably be encompassed in more of a PTO plan than another special pay code or vacation code that was used.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Mr. Seep?
Yes.
Thanks for asking that. Okay, anything else that committee members want to discuss around this topic?
We're gonna do the weather one next. Right?
Yeah, oh yeah, let's do the weather one. Yep, let's just move on to that one. No one else is jumping in, so.
No, I just wanted to know what.
Yeah, do you have any thoughts to start us off on that one, Ms.
I
Gentles?
think that this is exactly what our group discussed at the last meeting, so I move that we approve as written, the weather conditions. I think it's very good.
Well, what is in here is what we did approve and what
Yeah.
marked forward. So this is the current language that we have.
Point of
Okay, so
order,
probably
Mr. Chairman, point of order, did we vote on your motion?
Yes, we did, and it passed.
Okay.
And then, Ms. Gentis, it sounds like we don't need to take any action on that since that's already adopted language
Okay.
under weather
If
conditions.
it's to your liking, if there's other
Yeah.
discussion points and
No,
things that you,
I like, excellent.
Does anyone else have opinions on the weather conditions language that we already have?
Marty, you weren't here when we finished that discussion. is that-
No. Fine.
Okay, so I'm not hearing any, oh yeah, Mr. Cooey.
Well, this must be different depending on the department. The highway department, we probably aren't gonna give them the day off if it snowed too much.
that would be ill-advised. You'd have some calls.
That's not very nice, Mark.
I know it isn't, but I'm guessing we probably want all you guys working on that day, John.
Maybe, that'd be a good idea.
Just so we don't have someone say, hey, well, we don't have to work. County's closed.
Well, can I just say something? Aren't there
Yeah, go
certain-
ahead Supervisor Gentis,
Aren't
and then
there
Mr.
certain
C.
blizzard days that they don't even run trucks? I mean, isn't there a certain rule like that?
Josh could probably answer that better than anybody.
The only time we really wouldn't send trucks out there, and we have in the past, like when we went, negative 50 some degrees, we only sent a handful of trucks out to keep the drifting back. But even in blizzard whiteout conditions, I mean, we have to be out there, and I've been one of them out there in the trucks. You just have to be cautious about what you're doing. If it becomes too bad, we're out there, but we'll just pull over safely on the shoulder of the road or in an intersection somewhere we can keep safe until we can see enough to continue plowing operations. If that answers the question.
I think it does, right? Yep, Mr. C, and then.
Well, I did not have, I'm sorry, I didn't have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Luck.
This conversation does bring up at the UW, we always had a category of employee called essential employees who, when there was bad weather and things were called off, they still had to come in. And there was specific language that defined essential employees. And I'm assuming we also can't have our jailers not show up. We can't have our sheriff's department deputies not show up. So I guess that does beg the question, do we need to define this a little better with the essential employees being exempt from this particular language?
I can speak to that if you'd like, Mr. Chair. So yes, you have nursing home folks, you have ambulance folks. There's a good amount of county employees that, in fact, the worse the weather gets, the more that we need to be there and available for the community. In looking at this, I would say that as your administrator, I'm very partial to the last sentence, that on any other day in which an employee is unable to reach their office due to weather conditions, the employee has the option of treating such absence as their sick leave on vacation versus shutting down buildings. Now, saying that same thing, though, of being so dashing and we're going to be open, by God, if Quick Trip can get folks to run the till, we're going to be open. You do run into situations, though, too, like I experienced in Clark County, where I think 2 times we had squirrels or some type of debris get in a local transformer, and then we had power outages. So we had a building without electricity, not a safe condition. We had to get people out of a building. Same thing too with a few winters ago, there was a big cold stretch. We had water mains break, and now we had a building without water other than the jail, in which we brought in a tanker truck to make sure we had water going into a jail system. So there's other things that catch you by surprise. Everybody thinks snow and ice, but there's other conditions and reasons where you may have to kind of use the same language for shutting down a building. Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Mr. Turk.
And I guess in reading this, it says in situations in which their offices are closed. The sheriff's office is not closed. The sheriff's department, I should say. Pine Valley is not closed. So, I guess their operations are obviously continuing. So this wouldn't seem to me to be a problem for that.
And then, of course, we have the addendums, and I was able to easily pull up the highway one. There's a section on emergency assignments, and it talks about weather conditions and determination being at the discretion of the highway commissioner, even getting into specifics. It says a mechanic will be on duty during snow plowing operations when feasible. So I think the addendums are kind of a way to get into some more of those specifics in certain departments. Okay, any other discussion, or did I miss anyone who wanted to speak? Okay, well, I think we can move on. So it's for the good discussion here, and we'll look forward to hearing what the administrator's office and the administrator and his staff would like to propose to us, given some of these big picture ideas. Agenda item number 11, discussion and possible action on performance pay as requested in the December 17th Finance and Personnel meeting.
So, Mr. Chair, looking
yeah.
today for a motion pending discussions. For future item requests, the committee is asked to discuss and take possible action in amending or giving guidance regarding performance pay. And I do not have anything on here. If asked, I can speak on my limited knowledge of my experiences in going down and mentoring and shadowing with Monroe County. They operate on a pay per performance through a product that was put together not by Schenck. I think Schenck put together their pay schedule, and they work on a banding with a performance pay type of a system. I will defer to yourself, Mr. Chair.
Okay, let's let Mr. Seep have the floor first, because he's the one who requested this.
My specific question was, or issue was, should we have an employee who has a problem with performance or we're dissatisfied with performance, and we have to take some disciplinary action, such as a letter of reprimand or probation? In that case, should that employee, who, if he or she continues to be retained, receive an increase in pay during the period that that employee is under a disciplinary probation or a disciplinary letter? It just doesn't make sense to me that if someone is under a probationary status or another disciplinary status relating to performance, that they should automatically fall into the step system of getting a raise at the beginning of the year. I think there should be some relationship between performance and pay in those circumstances. I bring that up for discussion because it seems nonsensical to me to give someone a raise when there's a performance problem.
My initial
That's
reaction.
that's why I brought it up.
Thank you. Yeah, my initial reaction is when I worked at the city of Minneapolis when I lived up in the Twin Cities, and every year before I got my step increase, my supervisor filled out a form allowing me to get the step increase. So if that was the built-in mechanism up there, you could be denied a step increase if your supervisor wouldn't approve it because of a performance issue. So it makes sense to me what you're saying. What opinions do other folks have? Supervisor Gentis?
Well, I don't really want to have a complete performance-based salary system. I like the system we're on, but I'm not quite sure, and I should have read this better. I think we do need to have a yearly evaluation of every single employee, I think, and I like a goal-based one. And obviously, at that time or before, when someone's not performing well, we need to have everything in line with the letters right away. So I think we just need to make sure that, I think they are, that the department chairs are following guidelines when things are not going well. And we're having our letters in line so that if someone needs to be removed, can. But I think having a performance thing across the board is not a good idea.
May I respond?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Seat.
It seems to me that we have a policy which requires an annual performance on each employee, and that in addition, the department head would have the discretion or the liberty to conduct performance on an individual who may have problems either with performance or conduct. The administrator would have that same prerogative with those employees under his direct supervision. Am I correct about that?
Well, I'm just looking up the performance evaluation section of the employee handbook. It says the supervising, and I'm assuming some of this changed at our last meeting. Ms. Dole, you might remember. I can't remember. You're the one who spent more time with this, but it currently says the supervising committee shall conduct annual performance evaluations of the director, department head, commissioner, exception elected county officials. So that's what we replaced with the administrator. I'm pretty sure in our last revision that's not on our iPads yet. The directors, department heads, commissioner shall conduct annual performance evaluations of their staff using the standard forms available in the county clerk's office. So we do have that in our employee handbook. And I wonder if, is it possible for someone, for them to get a step increase on their anniversary? What if the performance evaluation had to be done and the supervisor had to sign off on the step increase? What if it was just as simple as that?
So right now, the step increases aren't always automatic because we're kind of towed up against a line of not progressing past there. So majority of our employees are only eligible by action forward, and it's kind of more of a cost of living increase that kind of goes along with that as well. So we can kind of formulate that, but having it hinged right now with where we're at in our pay progression and our pay plan makes it a little, doesn't quite balance out quite that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I forgot that step increases weren't based on someone's anniversary date. It's based on when the county board approves pay increase in our budget.
For some, there is, folks that are entering now are entering at, I believe, like a step 2, nursing home is a step 3. And then after a year, they're eligible for a step, and then they progress thereafter. But for a lot of our employees, they're already edged up against the top capacity that they can have. So, I mean, you can still do it in conjunction with that, but it's kind of happening annually as a pay increase or a COLA increase more than at your anniversary, you're taking a step kind of a function.
Okay, so what if I edit my comment and I say, what if in order to get a pay raise, the performance evaluation has to be completed by the supervisor and the department head signs off on the pay raise at that time?
Okay.
If the county board's approving a pay raise.
Basically, if they've got a satisfactory review, then they're fine. Then it all comes down to the county board anyway.
Yes. I think, yeah, Mr. Turk, go ahead.
In the context you're talking about, I don't think that's bad. In the broad terms about, this performance pay concept, to me, that would presuppose we were increasing pay on a regular basis. And perhaps if we get to an environment where we are doing that, then the broader concept makes more sense. But, the limited kind of implementation you've been discussing here, I think makes a certain amount of sense.
And I was about to say, before you raised your hand, I think this needs, I think Mr. Langrick needs to be able to go back to his staff and talk to them about this idea and then come back to us with, are there complications that this committee didn't discuss that need to be considered before something like this would move forward? But I think
that makes sense.
Okay. So maybe if we can just go ahead and formalize what our belief is here on this committee about this issue, and what we want staff to take a look into on this in the future. Mr. Sheep, do you want to take a crack at it since this is kind of your baby here?
Well, I move that the question of compensation to employees be related to a satisfactory performance report approved by the committee and the administrator.
And you mean increases in compensation?
Right.
Okay. Okay, that motion by Seep. Is there a second? I think what Mr. Seep said, I'll make an attempt and he can tell me if I misheard something, but that increases in compensation for employees be tied to satisfactory job performance evaluations.
That's correct.
And I think what maybe we might need added in there is that to direct staff to look into how that idea might be implemented.
Very good.
Okay, so that's kind of the motion. It's kind of a two-part motion, those two pieces in it. Was there a second for that?
No, second.
Second by Cooey. Any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Oh yeah, go ahead.
So is every employee being evaluated every year by someone? And are you evaluating the department heads, right?
I have the department heads in place that I'm evaluating are the ones that are appointed by myself. I've got a list of 14, of which I think I only have 4 currently evaluated right now, and making tracks on the other ones hopefully before April. Other employees, I don't know by department if every employee is doing it. I do know, like handbook right now, we're in violation is that I do not have a formalized employee review document that all departments are using that we have on file. Different departments that are implementing employee evaluations have their own different format, to the best of my knowledge.
Can I say something? When I was on Health and Human Services, we had a document that the county used, and I found it was totally inept and not a good way of evaluating or having it. And I'm very much in favor of goal performance evaluations rather than, I mean, they had things on there that just didn't make any sense from a board's evaluation. So I do think we need to look into that also.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. And we have one abstention. Supervisor Gentis would like to abstain. Okay, so that motion carries. Let's move to agenda item number 12, discussion and possible action regarding administrative strategic goals.
Today, looking for potentially a motion to approve report on addressing strategic goals, and then possible also motion to amend a priority work plan. Background, the county administrator will present a report on progress and planning to address the administrative goals for the 2020-2022 session. In the current list of requested identified administrative projects and initiatives facing the administrator and administrative team, as per previous action and discussion, the administrator will be presenting a report on current progress and priority work plan. As a process, because that was the other part of it, is what do you think we should do and how should we control that? As a process, committee will have the ability to recommend amendments and offer guidance via that motion. So if you look into your folder on the website at 12A, you'll see a report again on our strategic plans. I ended up crossing off the last column. It would have been previously an earlier date in December, and since there wasn't a lot happening because we've only had like 2.5 weeks since our last meeting, utilized that same column. So we are working again on a long-term plan with Southwest Regional Planning Commission, and a strategic plan by resolution is to be presented to the county board before we hit April. We've completed on the HR finance transitions to the administrator. Resolutions available on ordinance, signed a contract today with MuniCode based on previous actions for ARPA funds to be used with that. Implement uniform performance and review program. again, we're kind of focused at the department head level right now, but with actions today, further development on that item. Development with new county board orientation program, discussion with the chair, with Chair Murphy Lopez with rules and resolutions. I believe that's something that we plan on bringing back to that body next month in February, March at the latest, to finalize that. Full review of county employee handbook addendums and manual, anticipating February completion. We took action on those today. They'll be brought to the county board in February, and then I think we're complete on handbook and addendums. Cheryl, is that correct? Administrative manual? Gotcha. But as far as handbook, we'll be complete on handbook. Thank you. So then if you look at item number 12B, these are the recommendations, which I think we should be moving forward with in the hottest and heaviest on January. That's okay. Let me know when you're there, Linda. So these are what I've given guidance right now to my peoples, our office, as the priorities to try to put focus on the orientation and training program, which again we'll be bringing forward in hopefully February. Administrative performance evaluations and reporting to get through the department heads. We'll also then take a look off our actions today on taking a look at our performance evaluation sheet for all employees. Budget preparation and execution, the capital program and the 10-year financial plan is also in conjunction with the control plan. Then the finance service card system, we have a discussion with folks of U.S. Bank tomorrow at 10 o'clock on implementing a service card system that has a small percentage rebate, kind of acts as a debit credit card system. We're able to control it in-house, etc. It's a program I'm familiar with Greene County, so we'll have our financial folks and department heads receive some education on it tomorrow, see if it's a good fit for us. May come to you in February with a recommendation on implementing that service card system. Finance and personnel early childhood education and daycare program, also main target, heavy lifting by Cheryl in putting together a grant recipient letter. I believe we had our first grantee come in today and sign for those funds to be distributed. Then implementing a 1-week withholding on payrolls in 2023. Have begun discussions with other counties that have endeavored on this. Again, this right now, our payroll system is you're paid on Friday. It's for work that you completed up to Friday. Pay cards are submitted back an earlier part of the week, sometimes the week prior. So there's a lot of guessing on our pay cards that are being submitted, which then requires the following pay period to potentially go back and amend and fix stuff, which equals manual entry, manual entry, manual entry. So we're looking at doing a 1-week withholding where you'll complete your pay card on Friday. Your paycheck then doesn't arrive to you until the following week. So it's withholding on the employees. Certainly something that we would want to give month advance notice so that folks understand with their financings that a paycheck is going to be arriving to them a month late. Working again with other counties on how they best implemented that and educated on that. There'll be something coming back to you folks again here probably in the next month or two.
You meant a week late, right? Not a month
one
late?
week. Is that what
You said 1 month late.
I'm sorry, no, 1 week.
Okay.
Goodness, I'm sorry. Yes, no. One week, yes. No, some of the counties I'm talking with, they have like a three-week holding. So, I mean, it's
I'm surprised as well.
I ask a question about that payroll?
I'm surprised too. I had no idea, but thanks for letting us know. Mr. Seat,
Yes. I think you're talking about a bi-weekly system rather than a bi-monthly system. Is that correct, Mr. Langberg?
Supervisor Super, we're talking about with withholding. We would still be doing 2-week pay periods, but rather than getting a paycheck on essentially your last day of that pay period, you're submitting your time card and the county then has a week to process it, sort things out, and then you receive your pay for that 2-week pay period the following Friday. In some of our payroll systems, a couple of our payrolls are on that, but a majority of our payrolls are pay to date. So we're having to guess at what our last 2-3 days of a payroll are going to kind of be, and then go back and fix and amend the time cards the following pay period, which equals an enormous amount of manual entry and frustrations. across the-
Yeah. So you would have 26 pay periods for the year, and you would have a week's a week to make up the payroll by submitting those time slips on the Friday before the Friday they're going to be paid, after you catch up with the delay. Is that correct?
In most years, yes, you're still going to have 26. Every few years, there is a 27.
Carryover. Yes.
But yes,
Well-
there's a 1 week withholding in which you're going to finish a payroll period on a Friday, but you're not going to get paid for that payroll period until the following Friday.
I like that. It's much less of a burden for the payroll people who are making out the payroll, and in the end, it's more efficient. At first, it's a little difficult for some employees to get used to that withholding, but understanding that we're not taking away a week of pay, we're just delaying it. Is that correct?
It's not even being divided, it's just being withheld for a week. In
Right.
the event that in the event that employee separates, terminates, then obviously they still, they're not shorted a week, they just have to wait until the
Right.
pay date comes up, which is following.
I think it's an excellent idea, and I'm sure it will be well received by the payroll people.
So currently, if this Friday is payday, and if I'm full-time employee, am I being paid this Friday for this week?
That is correct.
Okay, great. I don't even want to ask why this wasn't done before. So I'm really just grateful you all are taking care of this, so.
We're
Much
planning
more-
to take care of it, Mr. Chair. Our goal is to take care of it, and it'll be it'll be a lot of effort, certainly will be, but is a little bit overdue.
Okay, so these are your priorities, and then you
These
have your
are-
longer list on 12C. And so are you
Yes.
looking for today?
To either accept the report, or if you think that there are other things on that 12B that are more pressing, let me know what needs to get put on there, what you recommend being taken off. Otherwise, these are the things right now that I'm prioritizing. Doesn't mean that other things aren't getting looked at. It's just these are the things that we're really trying to get a push on.
And you mean on 12C, where you have your longer list you showed us?
Correct.
If this committee thinks that anything should be pulled from 12C to 12B, you want to hear that right now.
This would be your opportunity.
Okay,
as a-
does
as a
anyone have
process.
any items on 12C, that longer list of things on the to-do list that you think should be a top priority?
So I'm just you already have that outline of how we're gonna budget, so you're gonna look at health insurance much earlier than what we did last year, right? So we might be addressing that.
Yes, there's kind of two parts to health insurance that I want
Yeah.
to bring forward all the way to this body this year. And this first one is yes or no, do we want to look at a state plan and
Yeah.
understanding the financial impacts of that? If we do not enter into a state plan, then following questions on what do we want to do with a broker? What do we want to do with a plan provider and plan structure?
Good.
I move that we accept this as submitted.
Okay, motion by Seat. I'll second. Second by Turk. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. Thank you for bringing that to us, and I think that was a request from the last meeting, so thanks for following up on that. I think that was
Very
Mr.
good.
Cooey. I read about that in the minutes. Mr. Cooey requested that, so thank you. Agenda item number 13, future agenda items. Mr. Brewer, do you have any?
Yeah.
Mr. Turk?
None today.
Ms. Luck?
Not today.
Mr. Seat?
None today.
Mr. Cooey?
Nothing today.
Ms. Gentis?
You did address broadband on that list, didn't you? On that second strategic planning list, you have something about the broadband. Did I miss that? I was trying to read that while we were doing it.
You actually mentioned this at the last meeting,
Yes, I did.
and we need to get this on the agenda, so we'll take that as a future agenda item.
Because
How's that sound?
the state legislature's saying they're giving money.
Okay. All right, we'll get that on the agenda. Is there anything else from you? Yeah. Okay. One item that I had was annual departmental and fund spending progress. Ms. Wheelock last meeting mentioned that she's working on a spreadsheet. So getting that spreadsheet here to this committee at the next meeting, I think would be helpful. And unrelated, related to this, the Rules and Resolutions Committee on Thursday is looking at something about this as well. So if any folks on this committee are interested in that discussion, this has to do with the committee structure document and what each committee, board, or commission is responsible for finance-wise. So just wanted to give you all the heads up on that too.
Very good.
Right. Okay, so that takes us to adjournments.
And I'm tracking on, earlier we had discussion
go
on
ahead.
policy change notification
Thank
that
you.
I have on the list as well.
Yes. For employees. Yes, the plan is to have a second meeting unless I'm incorrect, Mr. Langrick. So I'm looking for a motion to adjourn to Friday, January 21st at 1 p.m. Motion by Brewer, second by Cooey. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, we're adjourned. Thanks for your time today, everyone.
Thank you for a good meeting.
Get your papers in today? You did yesterday. I thought it was